Welcome, everybody, to another episode of the Bucket Bros. Yeah, that's right. I stole it from you.
I love it. I love that you're ready to go. Perfect.
I'm Bobby Marcico, coming from
I'm Ronnie
Charlotte,
West.
from Chicago, Illinois.
We'll
where
figure
it's
this out.
probably snowing or about to snow.
It was relatively nice today. I was able to walk around in my sweatshirt and not freeze. So spring's slowly approaching here in Chicago. No snow today. Not as beautiful as the Carolina Hills, unfortunately.
Yeah, no, it's okay. It's okay. But anyway, we're talking basketball, NBA basketball. You know, they say those who can't do teach, and those who can't teach just babble into a microphone about hoops. So
They say that.
Here we are, wasting your guys' time. We appreciate you joining us.
Yes, indeed. There's a lot of basketball going on. We got it before we jump into NBA. We at least have these logos listed on top that we have to reference it at least a little bit, even though neither one of us has Paramount Plus squared to watch all of the games. But congratulations to Houston and Florida for making the national championship game on the men's side, and congrats to the UConn women's team and Paige Buchers and Gino Ariyama. I already put the money in the bucket, but UConn women's basketball once again wins the national title. So yeah, there's lots of basketball going on, not just the NBA. So it's been a crazy time. And the last one I'm going to hit you with, Bobby, just because I am a G League supporter. We have JD Davidson is the G League MVP from the Maine Celtics. So just needed to get that in there before we
As if the Celtics needed any more luck on their side. Just the rich getting richer.
Yeah.
G League style.
He's in the wings, just waiting. He's a good player. I was trying to get up all my photos of him from there was at least 2 games where the Celtics were in town to play the Bulls, where I definitely got some pictures of him and his teammates and both of their wins over the Bulls. But yeah, let's talk some NBA. Nice. Well, let's jump into it. I know you're chomping at the bit to you're covering this play-in race and kind of jumping on the Western side. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say. What are you looking at? What are we upsetting you because you're not able to be watching the Nuggets and whoever else is playing right now?
Well, I was just going to keep that between you and me, but yeah, I'm a little upset that you guys are keeping me from watching the Warriors second half here and against the Rockets, and then also the Nuggets, who are trying to redeem themselves against the Pacers. The Nuggets have lost 3 in a row. If you look at everybody else who is remotely even sniffing the play-in race, bunch of win streaks out west right now, except for the Nuggets, who have dropped 3 recently. 3 perhaps losses that are really going to affect the standings for them. Maybe an episode or 2 ago, I was shooing them in for the number 3 spot. I thought maybe even they could steal 2, as long as everybody stayed healthy enough. But as it's coming down to the stretch, and they're playing some good teams, the output has just not been where it needs to be, in spite of some big games from Joker. So that said, they currently stand number. Thank you for pulling that up. Number 4 out west, and the Lakers have surpassed them once again at number 3. I do think at this point the Rockets have basically secured that number 2 spot. What a finish for them, by the way. What an incredible finish for the Rockets, who I was going to pull something up here. I was going to utilize it later, but but teams since the All-Star break, the Rockets are fifth on that list at 17-6, and those, if I'm not mistaken, I off the top of my head, those 6 losses came in a six game losing streak. So that tells you that they've flanked that with some pretty awesome winning streaks on either end. So yeah, way to go, Rockets! You guys are gonna. I mean, I thought for sure. I mean, I've been saying that. I think they're a playoff team. I think they're going to be better than whatever the 500 team that they were last year, which they got to from a big run at the end of the season, backed by the most incredible offense we've seen from Jalen Green in his career. But some of that has definitely leaked over into this year, obviously. And yeah, and I mean they're looking like a team to beat right now. But
Yep.
I'm
For the
sorry. Go
listening
ahead.
audience, no, I was going to say, at least for the listening audience, we'll break this down. So we've got the Houston's at 2. The Lakers have snuck into that 3 seed at 48-30, and all of this is as of this very moment. There are still games outstanding that could change this. Denver is at the 4. The Warriors are 5. Timberwolves are up to that 6 seed. Clippers at 7. Memphis at 8. Sacramento 9. Dallas is sitting there at 10, and they're a few games up on the Suns. So the West is looking interesting. That is for sure.
Yes, indeed. And you're ranking the teams, but it should be noted that it's currently a tie between the T-Wolves, the Clippers, and the Grizzlies at 6 through 8. I think we've been over this before because I think the records were essentially similar. At least the standings at this portion was similar last time we talked. But the T-Wolves clearly have the tiebreakers over the Clippers and the Grizzlies. I don't know where the Warriors stand in that. I have to look that up. The Warriors, who are only half a game above those 3 teams that we just mentioned, and the Nuggets, who are only half a game above that. And then, oh yeah, by the way, the Lakers, who are only a game above the Nuggets there. So it really, what is it? It's 2 games separate 3 through 8. Another nail biter.
Yeah.
And the one of the teams that we've talked about, the Grizzlies, who have they've redeemed themselves lately with a couple of big wins against. Let's see, I think they beat Detroit, and if I'm not mistaken, they also beat Miami. They redeemed themselves a little bit after going on a bit of a slide there, which is what led them to be in this 8th seed. I mean, they weren't sniffing playing all year long. They were like a top 5 team pretty strongly all year long. But yeah, now this team starts to slide. I mean, Ja had to sit out quite a few games along the way, but this team starts to slide. They fire their coach, so now they're trying to essentially scramble to find their identity at the perfect time of the season for them. I think that there's no chance that they finish worse than the 8th seed. So there is that. They're at least gonna have a chance to only have to play one play-in game. But I'm curious if they're just gonna be okay with that being the outcome of the end of their season, or if they're really gonna try to make some noise at the end here. I do think that they have. I don't want to say like one of the tougher schedules, but in
It's
general,
rough.
in particular, it's rough because they finished their season with, in this order, the Hornets, the T-Wolves, the Nuggets, and the Mavs. I think that last game against the Mavs is necessarily going to be one of their tougher games. I'm not so convinced, but having to play the T-Wolves and the Nuggets back to back like that, I mean, is really going to decide whether or not they make it into the playoffs outright versus have to fight their way in through the play-in, which is going to be a pretty disappointing end to their season, I would say, if that's how it ends up going, especially especially if they don't make it through the play-in. Now, if the season were to end today, they'd be facing the Clippers, and if they do end up having to match up against the Clippers, that might be one of their best options, just because that backcourt, at the very least, with Harden and Powell, maybe Ja can take advantage of that. But in general, the Clippers have been one of the best defensive teams in the league this year. So I would take the Clippers. in that matchup, which makes them having to beat the Mavs or the Kings, I suppose. Um, it Yeah, it is kind of sad that it doesn't look like the Suns, who have currently lost 6 in a row, or they. I mean, it doesn't look like they're going to make their way back in. It would take quite a slide from the Kings or the Mavs, and the Suns winning out their last 3 games of the season. I'm sorry, 4 games of the season in order for that to work. So it really looks like it's going to be one of the big question marks this offseason. We don't have to get into that now. I'm sure that will be probably a whole topic this offseason. But yeah, big scary games coming up for the Grizzlies here.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I felt like the last time we talked, they were sitting at like the either the 4 or the 5 seed, and then now here it feels like just a couple days later, they're all the way down at the 8 seed, but yet they've won 2 games. So that's what's kind of that just shows you how close this thing is. And yes, they did go on a 4 game stretch, and it was a tough one. So I just went. It was the Thunder, Lakers, Celtics, and I forgot the last team, but that was kind of a brutal stretch that they went on. And those 4 games they lost that kind of dropped them down to this 8 seed. So yeah, this is you to me, Memphis, like you said before, Memphis is a really good team, and somehow they've dropped. I think I had them high in my power rankings last week, so it's kind of nuts to think that they're now the AC, but that's just what the Western Conference is. So, do you want to jump out east, or do you have more on the West? What are your thoughts?
I don't think we're going to talk East play-in at all. Reason being primarily because there's just not that much to talk about. Uh, the top 6 has already been decided. So really, it's just going to be it's going to come down to the wire. I guess it's only a few games that separate the Magic at the 7 spot versus the Heat at the 10 spot. But the play-in teams are already decided as well, for that matter. Just the order has yet to be finalized. And to be honest, I honestly don't care who wins that 7 and 8 spot, because you're either up against the Cavs or the Celtics. And we're looking at 4 or 5 game series. I would be surprised anything that goes beyond that. So yeah, not a lot of excitement to talk about out east. Once again, we are at the end of the season talking about how 3 or 4 games separate twice as many teams going down to the wire here. And one team that I've been kind of hard on recently is the Warriors, but over the past few games, they've they're making me look silly right now. They just came off of wins. Well, they're playing the Rockets right now, and it's a close game. But they just came off of wins on back-to-back nights against the Lakers and the Nuggets, respectively. And this came after beating Memphis to start April on the 1st there. And I think obviously against Memphis, the Warriors needed that huge game with Steph for 52 points, 12 threes. But the other 2 games that they've won, one thing I thought that was interesting is Steph's box score plus minus. And I mean, obviously there's limitations with just looking at a single box score plus minus, but Steph -1 against the Lakers and +6 against the Nuggets. And you're going to tell me, well, that's not that good. Well, yeah, or that not that impressive anyway. But yeah, it's because in those 2 games, the Warriors are actually doing well. They were holding their own in non-Steph minutes, which is a big deal, and in both cases, they kind of just were able to open the game up at an opportune time. Just yesterday, or I'm sorry, a couple days ago, in the third, they had a big run against the Nuggets, and the Nuggets just never clawed their way back. And on top of that, I found it interesting that Joker, his shot chart looked amazing in the first quarter. He scored a ton. It was a high scoring first quarter for that game anyway. But then you march it out for the rest of the game, and he hit 3 buckets near the rim for the second, third, and fourth quarter combined. He nailed some 3-pointers, but he wasn't getting anything close to the rim after that, and I think it really stalled the Nuggets offense. The Warriors, I would say, if Steph is having a good game and Butler's doing his job, then they really just need one of their other guys to pop on offense. And naturally, everybody thought going into the season that it would be that we would see the leap from Kuminga, which just hasn't quite been there. A lot of it has to do with his just like shooting and finishing skills, just haven't really developed yet. But Podziemski has had 3 huge games. I say huge, but 3 out of the past 4 games, he's either scored 26, 27, or 28 points, and he's hitting his threes, which I think is the key ingredient to truly unlocking his game. Jack of all trades kind of guy, but really needs to be hitting his the deep ball, I feel like, in order to make like that big impact that you're looking for. But it could be any one of those guys. It could be any one of their younger guys, but it just has to be somebody. It can't be nobody. Otherwise, they're going to see these games slip away from them. But they got the Rockets now, and then the Warriors are playing the Suns, the Spurs, Portland, and then the Clippers to close the season. And that Clippers game, I think, could potentially be huge. That could decide multiple spots at the end of the season.
Yeah, no, and it's, as we were talking, that Denver game went final too. So they've lost now 4 straight. They lost to the Pacers. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I think the last game that I watched, like you mentioned, but Pods had a big game, and not like you said, it wasn't a big game. He just showed up when the time was right. And so, like we've mentioned that before, like they catch your attention, whether it's the eye test or not, they just are able to show up. And at least watching the Timberwolves and noticing one guy that kind of has shown up recently, and granted, I know you didn't want to talk about bad Eastern Conference teams, but Quentin Grimes, man, he is kind of showed out, and the fourth quarter that he put up last night was pretty remarkable to kind of almost go shot for shot against Anthony Edwards. So sorry to derail you. That was at least the one kind of thing that kind of jumped out at me, even though it has absolutely nothing to do with the Warriors. So I apologize for that. It's just something that I felt like it's like there's all these kind of role players that we're going to see kind of step up, and it's these different ones. Obviously, 76ers have absolutely nothing to do with the playoffs, but I think it's finding those guys that are going to all of a sudden have a big role to fill that we aren't expecting, that it's going to be needed. And I think it's funny, you were about to say kind of everybody was expecting this big jump from Kuminga. I thought you were going to say Buddy Hield. And so I think he's not as much of a factor as he might have been since the beginning of the year, for obvious reasons. So I am curious to know, how has the Jimmy Butler trade affected his usage as far as the Warriors go?
That's a good question. I don't know that I'm paying close enough attention to Buddy Hield minutes to really give you a great answer. Buddy Hield is certainly an up and down player. He's a guy who lives and dies by the 3, which is interesting for a guy who's hit as many 3. It's basically like him and Steph are over the past 3 or 4 seasons have hit more 3s than anybody else in the NBA. And it's just kind of interesting for how flat his shot is. They go in a lot. They really do. And I mean, even in a vacuum, even in like a 3-point contest setting, he does well, but it is kind of interesting to watch how flat his shot is. And so that leads to a lot of inconsistencies. His, obviously he's not the most like versatile offensive guy, but he is somebody, who you can rely on to get a couple buckets here and there, not just 3-pointers. I would say you're right. If you're going to add to that list I was kind of referring to the young guys, the Kumingas, the Podziemskis, the Moses Moody's, maybe even throw Quentin Post in there. Of just one of those guys really has to pop. But you're right. Buddy Hield should be added to that list. So I think the Warriors are still trying to figure out what they're doing on these non-Steph minutes. As I mentioned last time, I think it's looked a little bit better when they're not trying to have Jimmy run point because he's just taking too long to make decisions. It's not really his comfort zone right now. So I think as long as they keep the ball moving and he kind of a good mix of him playing off ball, because it seems like he's basically just going to try to score near the hoop or get to the free throw line right now, which I don't know. I don't know how that's going to translate in the playoffs, but yeah, anyway. So just to sum up the Warriors here real quick. Number 3 in the league since the All-Star break, 18-4. We have all been bombarded with just like how Warrior stats, their win-loss rate. They've only lost 5 games since acquiring Jimmy Butler. He's only played in 4 of those losses, so the record is absolutely stellar with him in the lineup. And I've been mentioning, I feel like they've really only played like cupcake teams, but or just like not super difficult matchups on any given night. But these past few games, they've been beating the teams that they absolutely need to beat. So again, we'll see how they do against the Rockets tonight. But I'm kind of starting to turn my viewpoint on them on how this might actually translate to the playoffs. Teams who make big runs at the end of the year like this tend to do well in the playoffs. So I'm not sure where they're going to end up in the standings. I think they would love to be in that 4-5 matchup. Actually, I take that back. They would probably want to be. I mean, honestly, any single one of these teams would want to be 6 at this point, if not 3, because they would want to try to avoid playing OKC for as long as possible. But yeah, they're looking like a team to beat. I'll give them that, especially when Steph's playing like this. Last 3 games, he's averaged like 41, 42 points a game, coming off that 52-pointer. So,
yep. No, I got to give. They've won 5 straight. They're 7-3 in their last 10. But it's funny, they have almost gone mirror for mirror with the Wolves lately, who are also won 5 straight, 7-3 in their last 10. And they're just lingering. They're, what is that, a game? And they're a half game back. Is that right? Doesn't look right. Yeah, they're a half game back of the Warriors, so they're staying right there. I just wanted to quickly highlight like this, like I mentioned last game, and it's something that at least I noticed in this past game. Like I said, Quentin Grimes had 28, but Anthony Edwards again with 37 points. And the next highest scoring Timberwolves was Rudy Gobert with 23 points and a lot more dunks. They're figuring out something and granted, it's against the Sixers, who no Embiid, so there's not really a center presence, and at least I've noticed that the last couple games that if there's no one there, they're just going to feed him the ball, and so and get some production out of him, which has been good to see. Like I mentioned before, so he's not an offensive liability from a foot away when he's able to dunk the ball. So that just makes it nice to get that offensive production. So, but Jaden McDaniels playing some stellar D. Alexander Walker has been hitting some big shots, playing some key roles. I think he led the team in assists this last game. But yeah, the Wolves are hanging in there. I'm exceedingly happy to see them at the 6 now with 4 games left. And we still play the Jazz and the Nets coming up. We got that one big game against the Grizzlies, but our schedule isn't as bad as everybody else's. So I think there's a shot to at least position themselves where they want to be. So that's good to see. And like I said, if like you mentioned, if they can still hang around that 6 seed and like you said, stay away from OKC for as long as possible, or even jump to that 3 seed, which they have the potential of being, because they're only 2 games out of that. So this has been a fun little dogfight that we're going to see here in this last week of the season. So it's nice to see. And like we said, we got a 10-point game in the Warriors Rockets going right now. So these matchups are exciting.
Oh, for sure. And obviously the T-Wolves, another team who's been hot since the All-Star break. 15-7. They've I mean, they're just beating the teams that are in front of them. As we mentioned before, them running their offense through Julius Randle has made it look a little bit prettier. I still think that they're going to live and die by how well they can hold up defensively, especially in a 7-game series. I think that that's kind of like really the backbone, the foundation of this team, because I mean, Ant's obviously a good offensive player, but there's no like single like there's not like a handful of stellar offensive players on that team. The T Wolves are also going to be an interesting offseason team just because they're gonna have to be looking to re-sign Nikhil Alexander Walker and Naz Reid, and I mean they have some really good players that a lot of other teams will want. That I hope they figure out a way to hold on to, figure out how to make the money work, because I have a hard time foreseeing Julius Randle opting out of his player option. I mean, it's possible he opts in and they trade him, but I mean, in terms of just heading into the rest of heading into the playoffs this season, yeah, they're another team who gets a chance to beat up on Memphis one last time before the playoffs. But it's been quite the run. It's been the team that we've hoped we would see this season. It's a shame it came a little bit too late, but yeah, certainly not somebody who I don't think any team would love to face in the first round. And yeah, I don't know if any team is even thinking about trying to thread that needle to get into the 6th seed, just because at this point it seems like you have to win every game you can and hope that you stay out of the play-in. So wherever you end up, you end up. But we'll see. We'll game by game that might change, as we only have a few left. And then staying out west, we did mention the Lakers, who have been able to recently leapfrog Denver and find themselves back at 3rd again. And they lately have sort of been leveling out, but they have been one of the hotter teams since the All-Star break, or really since the trade deadline. Well, actually, forget that, since before the trade deadline, and one of the crazier runs that a team has gone on this season with no Anthony Davis, with all this controversy in flux with Luka joining the team. But yeah, they beat OKC today. That was one of the things that I was talking about, where they're facing OKC twice to close the season, and I thought that could have a huge impact on where they finished. But they were able to beat OKC, and rather handily. And
like
they do, yeah, and they do face them again in 2 days. So I do think that will be interesting. While I was initially writing those off as high likelihood to be losses, ever since OKC lost that game against the Rockets before this Lakers game today, which made them no longer eligible to win 70 games, I think that they are kind of going into that coast mode to close the season now.
Down.
Yeah, not in the fullest sense, because Shea did play today, but he didn't score a single point in the 4th quarter, and he didn't
shutting down the intensity.
Exactly. Shea didn't get to the free throw line for the first time in, I think it's like 3.5 years or something like that. I saw a stat on that, but he didn't get to the line today since the first time since 2021. So yeah, I think now that 70 is no longer in play. One, Shea's not going to win the MVP anymore, so that's off the table. And then, just kidding, guys. And then, but yeah, I could very much see the Thunder just sort of accepting maybe even some fines to close the season and just not playing their guys as much. So the Lakers, I'm actually after the win today, I'm actually really liking their chances against their next game against OKC in 2 days. I don't think that's going to be as daunting anymore as it was last time we talked. And then, after that, the Mavs, they're playing the Rockets, and then they're closing the season against Portland. So, that Rockets game is not going to have as much weight as is not going to have that much weight at all, just because I think the Rockets have a comfortable enough lead at this point that we don't really have to worry about anybody else catching them. And so, yeah, I mean, the Lakers could very well slide into this third spot to close the season, which I think they would really, really prefer. It would be, yeah, I mean, it would be a really good opportunity for them to potentially make that. I mean, this could be their route to the Western Conference Finals. It is possible. It's on the table, and if they do finish third, I think that's their best chance for sure.
Yeah, no, it's pretty impressive to think that that would line up the way that it would if they could hang on to that. Because yeah, they're sitting pretty. They're 2 games up at least, or at least 2 games up in the win column on the Warriors, 4. So it's, I think you mentioned, it's kind of stunning to see what's going on with Denver, and it's obviously, you've already sold me on Shea last week, but like Jokic's MVP chances are, they fall slightly with every loss. I feel like
His stock is going
that
down a
even,
little bit.
yeah, just a little bit. There's
Well,
more.
even today against the Pacers, he had a 30-point triple double halfway through the third quarter. So it's not like for lack of Jokic-esque games, we're getting them. We're getting the best of still. But
Yeah,
but
no,
yeah, it's just not enough. You're right. You're right. If the team's not doing well, the stock's going to go down. That's just kind of how it is.
so it's, which is funny because I feel like a year ago I kind of was always rolling my eyes at you going off about him every time, and have sold me on the unbelievable talent that he is. And so now it's like, man, it's disappointing to see, even though he is still putting up impressive, crazy numbers. That is who we always say we're never going to see it again. And I can't, with the way that the body types of Wembanyama and Chet Holmgren are coming out, like who knows what's possible in the future. So uh, it's impressive to, at least I'm taking the moment to be impressed and realize like this is a one of a kind talent that we won't see for very long. I don't feel like, because just he doesn't have the love of the game as we all see. He's just incredibly talented and knows it. So it's, how many more years are we going to get of this guy just flinging, doing whatever? It's like he's just some magician out there.
Yeah, playing water polo on a basketball court.
That
I
is
guess I was
true.
going to say one more thing about the Lakers. One thing that's been really promising for them is one of their most recent wins against Memphis. Everybody's just beating up on Memphis these days. Their big three, that is LeBron, Luka, and Austin Reeves, combined for 85 points in that game. And then they squeaked out a low scoring, low efficiency game against the Rockets. Kind of just a bit of a slugfest in that one. And then today again that win against OKC. So you kind of you like seeing this going into the playoffs, them being able to win games in different ways. So I mean, I'm not super high on the Lakers this year. I think they have a very good future. They're another team that's going to be really exciting to watch in the offseason and before next trade deadline, just because they're going to be so motivated to be building. And I mean, not just internally, but externally, the pressure they're going to be getting to be building a team around Doncic. So, they got the carpet rolled out in front of them for a while now. I don't expect them to make too much noise in this playoffs. But again, if they finish third, that would be their best route to the conference final. So anyway, I feel like that's a little bit crazy, but we can talk about another team that plays in LA. You may have heard of them. They're the Clippers. They got their own stadium now, and it's pretty impressive. They've also been pretty hot since the All-Star break, 15-9, and even more than that, they've gone 11-2 in their last 13, with wins that included Memphis. Can't talk about winning streaks without mentioning Memphis. the Cavs and the Knicks, they have proven to be throughout the course of the season one of the tougher defensive teams in the league. Not what you thought you were going to get going into this year, but that makes it ever more impressive. Avicii Zubats has. I mean, we've always known him as like a good, like high IQ defender, a good rim protector, just a big boy. He's a big guy. But he's definitely really popped this year, and in the same year as we know that Norm Powell has popped. So I mean, obviously the big question is going to be: are we going to get playoff Harden, or hopefully are we going to see the same Harden that we've seen in the playoffs in years past, where his contributions seem to drop just enough to make him mortal, at least in his super high scoring days. And then now even though he's looking like he can still be a really good floor general, are we going to see that same guy come playoff time? Obviously he hasn't been like a super high scoring player this year, not the most efficient season he's had, but I mean he's still getting it done night after night, and it doesn't help that it doesn't hurt rather that he has Kawhi next to him, who's like a 20 plus point per game scorer at a very high efficiency. I don't see any reason to think that we're not going to see that version of Kawhi in the playoffs. Not to mention a little bit of his former defensive player of the year, two-time defensive player of the year, come out and making guys look silly. So, again, I really like them if they end up in that 7-8 playoff matchup. I really like them against Memphis. If that's how it really ends up playing out, I'd be scared to play them in a win or go home type game. Let's see. Up next, they have the Spurs, the Rockets, the Kings, and then that game that we mentioned, that ever important game against the Warriors to close the season, which could have some big implications. But they've quietly been a very interesting team to watch, and they've certainly thrown. I mean, if you look at their roster, you're like, oh yeah, I know that guy. He's a good NBA player. I've seen him play on winning teams before. They've thrown together a roster this year that even minus Paul George, which that didn't turn out to be that bad of a move after all. Even minus Paul George, they've been rather impressive. So yeah, I'm curious to see what kind of noise they can make as well.
Say Norman Powell jumped off the screen to me the last game I watched. Like he was just getting bucket after bucket and was on fire. I didn't even notice that there was Harden or Kawhi even on the floor, just because he was so ball dominant and was taking over. And granted, and they both were, so it wasn't like it was bench minutes. So like they were both on the floor, but I think his role with them will be impactful to be able to be another scorer, another reliable veteran ball handler in the playoffs. So they are a scary team for anybody, and it's like because this is so closely such a closely packed Western Conference, it's like any of these other teams can get bitten and by a gritty defensive team. And like you said, and I've always been a big critic of Harden, and it's usually because defensively he doesn't usually want to show up in the playoffs. And granted, there's been a few occasions where he makes the right decision, and maybe he's getting older and wiser as far as to positioning and knowing where to be, and versus just trying to be straight athletic staying in front of somebody. So I think there's potential there, and obviously you'd hope that, like you mentioned, the Kawhi factor maybe rubs off on him a little bit, and then playoff time he's gonna see playoff Kawhi, hopefully if he's healthy, like actually be able to see it right in front of him, and hopefully that brings out a little bit more a defensive-esque Harden. I'm not saying he's going to be Kawhi Leonard or anything close to it, but I think just being in a little bit better position, having the energy on defense, a little more focused, I think he can make a difference if he's puts that effort in. And so that's at least something that I'm wanting to see and will be looking for when it comes to play in and playoff time.
for sure. If we can actually skip back to the Nuggets here, who just dropped their fourth straight tonight against the Pacers, in spite of a 41-point triple-double by Nikola Jokic. I mean, obviously we're recording this right now, and I'm very hateful for it, but I'm gonna have to go back and watch. Yeah, I gotta. I'm. It's a little unclear to me why the Nuggets just really aren't pulling out these games as we come to the season's close, especially with a big part of that core squad that won the championship. You feel like they're the type of team. We're saying they got the best player in the NBA. You feel like they got the type of team that could squeak out games like this and really settle into a top four spot to close the season. But it's getting a little scary for them. I don't think we mentioned this yet, but to close the season, next they got the Kings, followed by the Grizzlies. Gotta be the Grizzlies, and then the
Are the
Rockets.
Grizzlies playing like 7 games in everybody's last 4? Like it feels like they're everybody's matchup here in the last couple games.
Yeah, I mean by but just by doing the math, the Grizzlies should only have 4 games, but I'm pretty sure they're about to go on a 7-game losing streak. So
You've named them with every team, I feel like.
yeah, they've had a
Except the
rough go
Clippers.
lately.
The Clippers, not the Clippers.
They've had a rough go lately. Yeah, I mean that last game against the Rockets, I thought was going to be much bigger than it really is going to be. I mean, it's going to be big for the Nuggets because they're probably going to have to get that win now. As in terms of where the Rockets might be. Oh, excuse me, folks. In terms of where the Rockets might be at that point, heck, they may be resting their guys to close the season. So, and it could ultimately be an easy win for the Nuggets. But I could also see the Rockets putting their full squad out there and just putting their foot on the throat of the Nuggets just to prove a point. Even though it's unlikely that they'll play him unless the Nuggets do in fact drop at this point to the plan. It's getting really close. I mean, I don't know. Let's see who else is playing. Sorry, folks, we're kind of doing this in real time as there's a lot going on. But yeah, have let's see. Do we have any more active games at this point? No, the Warriors. Yeah, okay.
I think it's just the
All
Warriors
right.
Rockets, right?
Rockets win. Rockets win that game as well. So here, I do have to hit the refresh button because okay. I don't think
Yeah,
that
it's
that
it's
that the
updated on
ESPN standings
NBA.com.
has okay. Yeah, I don't think the ESPN standings has quite caught up, but I'm pretty sure if we
The
notch that
Clippers are
loss for the
now in
Warriors,
the Clippers are now the 5 seed.
that's just wild. That's absolutely wild.
So since we've updated this, Lakers 3, since we've recorded this, Lakers 3, Nuggets 4, Clippers 5, Warriors 6, T-Wolves 7, Memphis as the 8th. So definitely a
So that
shakeup.
means that the Warriors, T-Wolves, Clippers, and Grizzlies all have the same record right now, and my screen's not doing what your screen's doing. So it
Yeah,
sounds like the Warriors have the tiebreaker against those 3 other teams. Is that right?
they have
Based
so
on the current standings.
Clippers. The Clippers have the
Oh,
tiebreaker over the Warriors because so 5 through 8 all have the same record right now at 46 and 32. And so it is Clippers, Warriors, T Wolves, Grizzlies.
got it. Thank you for clarifying that. This is some good radio. Um, well, well, that said, yeah. I mean, this is getting scarier and scarier for the Nuggets.
Well,
At
the
any
Nuggets
rate,
just moved up a seed from what they were after that game.
that's true.
Before
That's a good point.
so that's nuts. So yeah, before the end of that game, they were at the 5, and now they've moved up to the 4, having
Gotcha.
lost.
Gotcha.
Whew.
And then, wow, this is getting crazy. But
Yeah, I got
yeah, It looks like the Kings are going to make it too. We haven't talked about the Kings. I don't know that I really want to, if I'm being honest. I only got so much time in my life, to watch and appreciate basketball. And how much of that do I want
NBA
to spend?
basketball.
Yeah. I can't. I don't even. You had to remind me at the top of this podcast that there's even other basketball leagues out there. I forgot all about it.
Yeah, I at
I
least
don't know that I
attempt
want
to
to
go
spend that
see
time
one.
talking about the Kings at the moment.
No, but it would be fun to see them in just the turmoil that they've had over the season. Uh, and granted, it's just funny that them and the Bulls would both make it in, probably around the same seed, and yet they've all traded players for each other.
Yeah, the Kings are basically the Bulls 2.0. Just to
Yeah, and did the exact same
swap
thing.
out Vucevic with Sabonis.
Both sitting at the 9 seed. And we'll see what happens with each of them. Going to host a playing game.
Yeah. Well, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, they're going to be playing the Mavs for that first playing game, and I don't even know who I would vote Mavs at this point, just because I feel like the Mavs have a lot more emotion behind these wins and losses at the moment.
Is Anthony
Just
Davis
because
back?
he's back, he's playing okay. I think he's having to shoulder a bigger burden than the type of player that he's built to be, and so he just can't do it night after night. There'll be moments, there'll be quarters, there'll even be games of him kind of taking over or looking like a guy that they run the offense through. But yeah, it's he needs a number two or really a 1A out there perhaps.
Yeah.
And yeah, they just don't really have that right now. I mean, defensively they could be a good team, but I mean, hey, it would be really exciting to see him in the playoffs. But if that was the case, that means one of the four teams that we just mentioned who are all tied would not be playing. So that would be very, very strange.
Indeed. Do you have anything more on the West play-in, or can we jump over to our other topic?
No. I guess we didn't give specific dates, but obviously there's a few good games that are out there that are really, really important coming down to the wire. Most of which seemingly involving Memphis, but not to mention that Clippers Warriors game to close the season. That might be probably the biggest game that day, if I had to guess.
Well, I'm looking at it here. So if you are wanting to go and find out, go to NBA.com. They have the SoFi NBA play-in tournament is going to be from April 15th to the 18th is the play-in tournament for those games once that gets started. We still have probably another week. We are in, I think it said week 25 of the NBA started today. And so at least for the Timberwolves, they got 4 games this week, and that's about the same for most teams. It's 3 or 4 games. We are at the tail end. This is the last week of regular season basketball until we get into the playoffs. I think what is that the next weekend? I don't have my calendar up. So 15th is 9 days away. So yeah, next Monday sounds like the start of the play-in tournament. So if we're finished there, then we will jump into they had the announcements for the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame. And so I am curious to get your reactions. Do you want me to fire these off, or do you want to kind of talk about one and get into their career and kind of go down the list, or should we just kind of fire away?
Give me if you don't mind running a list real quick, and then we'll kind of touch upon the ones that we have time for one by one.
Yeah.
Give me the
So,
highlights. Give me the bullet points first.
so here's the bullet points. So these are your inductees to the Naismith Basketball Hall of Fame for 2025. We have Carmelo Anthony is the headliner, followed by Dwight Howard. We have Sue Bird, Maya Moore, her teammate Sylvia Fowles. We have Coach Billy Donovan. I became acquaintance with his son this past season. We have referee Danny Crawford has made the Basketball Hall of Fame, And as the team to make it, it is the 2008 men's Olympic basketball team, coined the Redeem Team, that came in. It was Kobe, KG, and a whole bunch of others came in and saved us after I think we got silver or we lost in the third place game in 2004 or some sort of debacle that made us not be the dream team. We needed a team to bring us back, and that was the '08 Redeem Team. So, what are your thoughts, at least on these? I think kind of obviously Melo is the highlight. One of those that always the ring was elusive and he never quite got it, but he had a one and done season at Syracuse and won the national championship, and is probably one of the most famous college basketball players for that season, and then ended up in the '03 draft with D Wade and LeBron and Darko. It took me a second to remember his name. But yeah, so, and then obviously Dwight Howard kind of followed the same path as Shaq. It kind of had the Superman motif and everything as well, from Orlando to LA. Dominant big man, huge dunker. And yeah, and then we got the WNBA stars and Sue Bird, who I think she just retired this past season. I know Maya Moore led the Lynx to, I believe, 3 WNBA championships with teammate Sylvia Fowles. And obviously Billy Donovan went back-to-back at Florida. I can't give you any highlights for Danny Crawford. I'm sure he's teed up Draymond Green a few times, probably Ron Artest. Who knows? So yeah, now that I've rambled and kind of given you some time to think about each one or look up any stats, what are your thoughts on these inductees?
Well, I'm glad that Mel's making first ballot Hall of Fame here, and that and the timing of it is great for him. I feel like especially while he was still playing, there was this whole like forgot about Melo move that was going on, even when he could still play. I mean, I know that his skill set doesn't really match up well with the newer run and gun style, pace and space, if you will, style of the NBA. But I mean, he's as of now, and I think it's the season's certainly going to close this way. I mean, he's 10th all time on the NBA scoring list, and the dude was a bucket. The amount of times when he was playing for the Knicks that I saw him up against my Bulls, who were kind of in that fluctuation from being like the 500 Kirk Heinrich led team, Ben Gordon, those days before D Rose. The amount of times I saw him just hit clutch bucket after clutch bucket, and I think there was even one season in particular where it was like 20 games apart or so, where he hit game winners in both of those games. And yeah, I was never a guy who was necessarily watching Melo to root for him. A lot of times I felt like I was watching the team that he was doing something incredible against, and so he was actually breaking my heart more than anything else. But yeah, I mean it's a good memory of his individual performances either way.
I have a question for you though. Here's the big question that kind of looms over Melo. Does his number 15 get retired, or does Jokic's 15 get retired? Whose number goes in the rafters in Denver? Who's the better 15?
I don't know how they're going to do that one. I mean, we already know who the better 15 is. The guy who's won 4 MVP awards, 3 of them regular season, 1 of them finals, and perhaps counting still. So, yeah, I mean, it would be kind of strange for that ceremony to take place. Oh, that's awkward. It's awkward, I will say. I mean, is
Melo
Melo's
at the ceremony?
I mean, that's what I was saying. I think he would end up getting invited.
He'd have to be there, yeah. Somebody would have to make sure that he approves it, that it goes up.
I think you nailed it. I think that there would be a conversation with Melo of like, hey, how do you want us to go about this? Can you retire two guys on the same number? Has that ever excuse me? Has
Yeah,
it
getting
ever
this
even been?
both.
But I mean, yeah, if anything, the Knicks would probably be the team to retire his number. Somebody's got to do it. It can't be the Trailblazers. uh,
Thunder?
yeah, maybe. But yeah, all time career. Yeah, it's a shame the that tandem with Iverson when he was buddying up with Iverson, that those awesome Nuggets teams, who I think one of them even may have won 60 games one of those years. They couldn't make the big playoff push they were hoping for, but yeah, if you don't know much about Carmelo Anthony, watch Carmelo Anthony highlights and stand back and be amazed. I had to verify this. I feel like we've already done this trivia, but Dwight Howard, who you mentioned, all-time career dunks leader. It's just
Yeah, that
crazy
was
to me.
a stumper for you. You completely blocked him out of your mind.
Yeah, it's just crazy to me that he beat Shaq in that category. Especially, I mean, Shaq had a pretty lengthy career. Not that Dwight Howard didn't, but Shaq, I feel like as a starter had a very very lengthy career. So it's hard for me to think that anybody would have surpassed him. And
I feel like Shaq had more hook shots when he came out of college versus Dwight Howard just was straight dunking as much as he
maybe that's what
possibly
it is. Maybe
he
that's what it is.
Shaq
He
at
just
least
had
had a
a
little bit of a shot. Like Dwight Howard did too, but I think Shaq used like his little baby hook a little bit more often and versus just trying to run over somebody like Dwight Howard would try to do. Or he tried to put you on Sports Center. He wanted to put you on a poster. Um, and that was kind of his MO, at least those first few years in Orlando for sure.
yeah. Yeah, and it's just crazy too that it's crazy to think that the Dwight Howard led Magic, one of those Magic teams, made their way to the finals. They yeah,
Yeah.
you're just not going to see that too often anymore. A guy who's like, what was he? He was like 23 and 14 that season. He was a double machine, but I mean, he was like the best offensive player on that team, and
Like
well,
Shaq did the
you know,
same thing. Shaq did the same thing against the Rockets when he took them to the finals when Jordan was out, I believe.
I mean, as you kind of mentioned, I would give Shaq the edge on in terms of offensive talent. I feel like he's a more well-rounded player. It's that's just that style of play, and the fact that he's not a guy who's ever going to lead the league in scoring. To
No,
be able to come out of the East with one of the better teams of that decade, to come out of the East led behind Dwight Howard. I mean, they lost. Can you remember? I can't even remember off the top of my head. Who did they match up against in the finals? Who did they lose to? Was that
the
one of the
Magic.
Lakers years?
Oh,
Yeah,
them. It had. I
or
don't
was it?
remember offhand.
I will tell you, it was either Lakers or Spurs, but I can't remember.
Yeah, no. Uh, the only other name that I wanted to highlight, just because you've got Chicago Bulls up behind you, uh, is Billy Donovan, the second. In just his role, having won back to back titles in Florida, I think obviously that's the reason he's getting in, not for a mediocre Bulls team that has been decent as of late. Um, what is your takeaway? What are your thoughts? At least maybe concise thoughts of just from what he's done in Chicago, whether you've liked it or hated it. I'm just kind of curious to get your thoughts on Billy Donovan.
I certainly don't hate what he's done in Chicago, especially with the paradigm shift of the offense this year. Where and part of this is it's just like it's a copycat league, and so the Celtics are winning games by breaking breaking the records for amount of 3-pointer shot in a game, season, stuff like that. But I mean, the shift to the Bulls being a 3-point shooting team, I think it was something that was a bit overdue. I think in part, obviously, because they still had DeRozan on their team. So, but yeah, for them to play this year, faster paced offense, they're not a winning team currently, but they will upset some teams on any given night, just because if they're hitting shots, they're really tough to beat. They do have a lot of good offensive players on that team, none of which are all-stars. I mean, some who have sniffed all-star, Vucevic in particular, but who's been an all-star. But and then on top of it, with Buzelis, he's really been developing as a player. I mean, I know that he was seen as one of the higher draft prospects and then dropped on the board after being a part of the fizzled out G League Ignite experiment. But yeah, I mean, the fact that a guy who's this winning as a coach, and not just in the NBA but in the NCAA, who is willing to contribute his talents to this current rendition of the Bulls team moving forward. I don't think Chicago hates him being there. He doesn't really seem like one of those coaches that's going to be fired for a team that's underperforming. I don't really think the Bulls are underperforming, but they're not like a super winning team. I just don't see him being the scapegoat coach, who gets fired as a result. Yeah, I mean, from what I've seen, like his
until
style.
Tomorrow, me breaking news: Billy Donovan.
Yeah.
Jinx.
Yeah. I mean, he's had quite a contribution to the league. It is kind of crazy. I guess I didn't know this about coaches, but I didn't realize you could be an active coach and still make it into the Hall. I find that kind of interesting.
Their Hall of Fame is a little bit different. I've just noticed, just because it is across like college, professional,
Right.
high school, and obviously officials. So it's anybody that's related to basketball that has done good to the sport. To me, that sounds like is getting in.
So maybe it's just his NCAA that is actually getting him on the ballot in general.
That and longevity. I think body of work probably comes into it too. The fact that he's been NBA, NCAA coach, and I'm sure a high school coach, then you kind of hit the trifecta, and that probably is not a shoe-in, but a pretty good chance of getting you in if you go across all of those and win a championship somewhere in the midst of that too. So good on all of them. Round of applause to everybody. Congratulations on getting in. But yeah, I can let you get back. I guess the game is over, but we can let you go and watch some highlights. And it's not the same. I know that. Any last thoughts? Any last comments here? We'll probably get maybe one podcast by the end of this week to get some last minute thoughts going into the play-in tournaments. But yeah, last thoughts for tonight.
So you're saying you didn't want to do 30 minutes on Danny Crawford real quick? That's fine. That's fine.
Well, you can do that as a separate piece and record that after I go to sleep, and you can post that all you'd like. But yes, do a hit piece on the amazing work that Danny Crawford has done as a referee on the court.
I don't know
not
that
even
anybody,
off the court stuff.
I don't know that anybody should listen to that. If it does get popular, it would get popular in a way that like drinking out of cups YouTube sensation did. But yeah. And without LSD being involved at all, in fact.
Yeah. No drugs.
Well, on that note,
stay off the drugs.
Well, on that note, thanks for tuning into the Bucket Bros. Make sure that you like, subscribe. I feel like I need you to do this part. I don't even know what media options are out there. Just all of them, all the socials, all the places where you can do videos and podcasts. And I think we're there. Come find us.
We're trying. Right now, we are focused on YouTube. We are making sure that our YouTube family is taken care of. We are posting quite a bit there. We will get better on, and we're posting on X. We're on TikTok. We're on Instagram. We're going to make a Facebook page at some point. But yeah, come find us, come follow us. We're chatting about basketball. We hope you guys do too. We hope you enjoy it. And I can't believe we are almost through our first full season. This has been, it's kind of heartwarming. And it's like we're like 10 months into this. This has been pretty impressive that we've decided to save our wives and talk about basketball to each other versus mumbling it to ourselves and looking like crazy people. So yes, we appreciate everybody who's following along and enjoying us just chatting away. So thanks.
Well, we hope we inspire all you other basketball heads out there. Hey, with enough concentration, you too can talk at a level of a guy who watches about one game a night. Just keep dreaming big. Keep dreaming big out there.
All right, everybody. This is the Bucket Bros. We'll see you next time. Swish. Where's that ending recording?